Hello and welcome. You're listening to Garden Fork Radio. Did you just download this to see what it was all about? If you did, thank you. For everyone else, hey, here we are. We're back. Garden Fork.
You're gonna regret downloading this one, I can tell you.
Thank you, Rick. Let me go back to welcoming people.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go back.
Anyway, it's an eclectic DIY. I have a podcast. I have a YouTube channel with the same name, Garden Fork. Today, Rick and I are here. Hello, Rick.
Good morning, my friend. How are you, Eric?
I'm really hungry, and we're going to talk about rice and beans.
Oh, well, that should make you even more hungry. This is absolutely my favorite food in the world.
And I also wanted to talk about giving away my bees and a little bit more update on that as well. So, which one you want to start with? Well,
let's start with the bees real fast because that's a quick one.
For me, it became not fun, and I talked about it a bit on the Root Simple podcast with Eric Knutson, but it feels like a great weight is off. It's one less giant to-do thing on my list, and I am so much happier now. So,
yeah. Did you give every individual bee a little notice that you'd be leaving?
No, it was just the logistics of getting them off a roof of a 3-story building that just has a ladder shaft access was. It took 3.5 hours to do it.
I don't know why you haven't put a crane in. I mean, just a simple hand crank, system for getting stuff up onto the top of that building. I see you sweating bullets every day, hauling hundreds of pounds and shoving it through that one little hole while standing on the ladder. And I wonder about your sanity.
I don't have to do that anymore.
Well, no, but then you had to seal and coat your roof, and so there was all that stuff.
Right, that's my roof. The bees are on my friend's roof. But anyway, the bees are in good hands. But it was kind of a mental decluttering, really.
Yeah.
So anyway, I feel really good about that. They're in good hands. It was quite a thing to you have to take the hives apart. I put screens in the top and bottom. I made these custom frames with screen material, and I used every ratchet strap I owned, plus I borrowed a bunch of them. And so they are actually in Astoria. I thought they were going across the street to Greenwood Cemetery because Nick keeps bees in Greenwood Cemetery as well. But he said, and it was a very good point, that the bees, since they're literally going across the road, 5th Avenue and 27th Street, in Brooklyn, that they would just probably come back to the roof looking for the hive. So he took them up to Astoria where he has a bee yard. So that was great.
Yeah. Greenwood Cemetery, is that where bees go to die?
Okay. Thank you, Rick. Have you been caffeinated today or something?
I am over-caffeinated, I'm afraid.
Clearly you are. But Rick sent me an article about rice and beans from NPR, and I read another article about rice and beans on consumerreports.org. Both good middle-of-the-road organizations. I know that some people might not agree with that, but I think they're pretty much middle of the road. But anyway, about food, I think they're neutral, politically neutral on food. So I love rice and beans, don't you, Rick?
I am a great fan of rice and beans. Usually, She Who Must Be Obeyed just returned to town. It was another sister's trip. And normally, while she's gone, I will make a big pot of rice and beans and pretty much subsist on that until she gets home. I didn't do it this time because I had some other issues going on, but there are just so many ways you can make a really fulfilling and quite inexpensive meal out of rice and beans, and then add a little fruit or vegetables on the side, and you've got a complete meal.
Yeah, it's in the NPR article. I already knew this, but when you do it right, the rice and beans form a complete protein, and a lot of vegetarian and vegans, you have to be really careful to get enough protein. And the beans plus, I think, whole grain rice will give you the complete protein. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. That's what they call polished rice or white rice. You're stripping out the good stuff. The germ, you're stripping off all the outside. You're losing a lot of niacin and important vitamins when you strip off that brown covering on the rice, and it's good for you, and it's also fiber, and it's roughage. And the whole point of this article in NPR was to get the mix right. It needs to be a little more beans, a little less rice generally. And the poorer you are in nutrition, generally it goes the other way. You eat a lot more rice and fewer beans. But beans are good. They're low glycemic index. They are good for diabetics. They're good for heart disease. They're really kind of an all-round great food, and they're literally dirt cheap.
So low glycemic index means we don't get a sugar crash after eating them?
Exactly, which is exactly the opposite of polished or white rice,
Right.
which is a high glycemic, and so then you get a crash. So brown rice and a good set of beans, and you're in business.
Yeah, the camera operator is on a long business trip, basically going around the world, and because that's what she does. And I'm like, ooh, rice and beans. I mean, she'll eat them as well, but it is it's kind of a bedding down. I don't know, kind of homing comfort food to me.
Well, I have talked, and I'm sure I've told this story ad nauseum, but so I'll just do it briefly. I kind of follow the Stoic philosophy and do the best I can with it. And one of the lead Stoics, Seneca, in his letters to Lucilius, and I think it's number 15, says, whatever you're really afraid of, go and do that thing so you'll stop being afraid of it. And so he gave the example, if you're really afraid of being poor, then take some time and live as close to the ground as you can. And normally when the she who must be obeyed is gone, I will close off the house. I'll move into the sunroom. I'll open all the windows. I'll sleep on a mat on the floor. Dog barking. Terrier alert.
Terrier alert.
I'll ride my bicycle everywhere I have to go, unless it's so far that, like a doctor's appointment, had to go 30 miles over to a naval hospital. But I will literally I'll shower with a hose in the backyard and live as close to the ground as I possibly can. How poor can I actually get by with? And beans and rice is a big part of that. And then eating out of the vegetable garden, tomatoes, lettuce, what hadn't been eaten by the bugs,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, just to prove to myself and to remind myself every now and then that I can do it. I don't need all this stuff cluttering up my life.
Yeah, I've been doing a big declutter. Let me read one paragraph from the NPR article.
I didn't know you could read.
Yeah. A nutritional worry is the rice itself, which most often is polished white rice. The processing that turns brown rice into white rice removes the bran and germ layers, along with much of the healthy oils, iron, magnesium, vitamins B1 and B3. What's left behind is a starchy grain with a high glycemic index, meaning that it raises a person's blood sugar level after eating and doesn't fill them up for very long. A recent study by the British Medical Journal even found that eating white rice is associated with a higher risk of type 2 diabetes, and diabetes rates are rising worldwide. Brown rice would be better. So yeah, and brown rice I think tastes better than white rice.
Well, I think so too, and it has a kind of a nutty flavor, and it has that nice texture. We ought to talk about arsenic, and I think they do in the second article from Consumers Report, which is titled "Is Rice and Beans Good for You?" And the answer is yes, but sourcing your rice is a problem. I grew up in cotton country when I was a kid up on the plains, and so I know exactly what went on up there. They would grow the cotton. They needed to defoliate it, get the leaves off of it. And so they would come through with these trucks and they'd spray arsenic on the cotton. And that would defoliate the cotton, and the arsenic would soak into the ground, and it would make it easy for the cotton balls to be picked, but the arsenic is still there. This same thing happened down in Mississippi, Louisiana, all those places that used to be Civil War and post-Civil War cotton country. Mm-hmm. And they did the same thing. And then they discovered rice because the soil down there is very clay-like, and so it holds water. And so they can create rice paddies. But what they've done is create rice paddies in fields that have been soaked for generations in arsenic. And so, that also gets into your rice. And Consumer Report has done a long report about this. But it turns out there are rice growers on the West Coast, and I forget the name of the brand that we buy, but it's a West Coast rice. It's organic. It's brown, and
Oh, is it a
it's never
Lundberg or something? Or?
Lundberg. That's it. Yeah, and it's never been those fields have never been used for cotton, and so there's no arsenic in the fields. And so if you're going to buy brown rice, my recommendation, or at least what I buy, is the good stuff from California.
And the article here which we'll link to both these articles, it says you can further reduce the arsenic content of any type of rice by 40 to 60% by cooking it in a large amount of water the way you would eat pasta. Yeah. And another great point they have here, which I've been doing more and more, is swap in other grains. At least half the grains you eat in a day should be whole grains. But they said, in place of whiter brown rice, try other whole grains. Barley, wheat barrows, farro combine very well with beans, says Jason Ziobrowski. See, I'm from Wisconsin, so I can say that.
So you can say that. I would be lost.
Hey, real quick here, I was wondering if you wanted to join the Garden Fork email list. It's Maura Eric. I don't know if you want that or not. But the best way to do that, if you go to the gardenfork.tv site, there are signups all over the place. There should be one on every page. Also, in the show notes for this show, if you're listening to it in the iTunes app or one of the other podcast apps, to click on the little, I think you click on the little text thumbnail of the show and the notes will pop up and there's a link in there. Or just go to gardenfork.tv and there should be a sign up there. All right? Thank you.
You know, and people think, well, beans and rice, that's pretty plain. But there are so many things you can do to make a pot of beans and rice just superior.
Unctuous. You can make it unctuous.
Unctuous. Is that really what you want to say?
Yeah, because I crack a hard boiled, I crack a fried egg, sunny side up over the rice and beans, and it makes it taste amazing.
Ah, okay. You know, I make lots of times Jamaican rice and beans. I do a lot of Louisiana jambalaya style rice and beans. I do Western rice and beans with a lot of chili powder in it. If you go to a site like All Recipes, it's all one word, ALLRECIPES, All Recipes. They have dozens and dozens and dozens of ways to dress up rice so that it's not a boring meal at all. In fact, we do on a fairly regular basis this recipe for black beans and rice enchiladas, and wrap them in tortillas and then some cheese on top and bake them, and it is just wonderful.
You can also go to Pinterest for rice and bean recipes because it shows pictures of cool stuff.
And they have an Instapot recipe here for rice and beans.
I also, if you don't have time to make beans, you can, Goya makes our highly rated pre-cooked beans. I get Goya at the, I have a Latino grocery store in my corner here that has a whole aisle dedicated to Goya. It's kind of like the Bed Bath & Beyond of Goya foods when you walk down this aisle. It is my favorite grocery store to go to. They're all like hardworking and friendly. It's nice. But anyway, you can take, what I do in a pinch is I take a can of black beans or a can of black beans and I dump cumin on top. I'm actually very generous with the cumin and I microwave it. And then I will either have some hard-boiled eggs laying around or I fry up some eggs or I'll poach some eggs in the microwave and drop that on top. I might have some leftover quinoa or something like that, and that goes on the bottom. And then you could even drizzle olive oil over that or some vinegar, like a balsamic vinegar. And that's dinner, and it will fill you up.
That's right. And, if you're if you're not a vegetarian, if you want to eat a little bit of meat, some andouille sausage or some Polish sausage or something, fry it up in a pan and add it to your rice. That is just as good, too. In fact, in our house, we do not eat pasta anymore. We cook up brown rice and then use it as our base for spaghetti sauce and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so, it's like 6 ways to Sunday here.
Yeah,
There's
no
7 ways.
kidding.
Why is it 6 ways to Sunday?
I have no idea. I guess
You would know
because,
that.
but if you get to the seventh day, you're already there.
I thought you, the Stoic, would be able to quote some Stoic writing and the exact issue of the Stoic thing.
On 6 ways to Sunday,
Yeah.
they didn't do Sundays.
Interestingly enough, this is maybe giving away too much information, but my wife has been to the Middle East, and their work week starts on Sunday
Yeah,
because their weekend is Friday and Saturday.
right. And wow, she lucky her. How come you don't get to go?
There's 2 Labradors downstairs I have to take care of.
Doesn't doesn't she need a porter? Somebody to carry her bags and
She travels very light, actually.
and schlep around. Yeah.
She is an expert traveler. So,
Wow.
but I really love kielbasa, but I can't eat too much of it because it always comes back to I basically belch it up later.
Yeah.
But a little bit of kielbasa and rice and beans is the way to go. Homemade, no, like local. There is a local. There's a Polish sausage shop right near me, and that's amazing. There's got to be one in your town. It's probably in some strip mall on the side of town, but go find that. It'll be right next to the Indian grocery store. So
What we ought to have on our Facebook page, which is the Garden Fork discussion Facebook page group, is a rice and beans week where everybody just takes pictures of their rice and bean meals and posts them for us.
Oh, there you go.
And with a little description of how they did them and what they did. By the way, I discovered I have been buying at the store, jars of chili powder and jars of Louisiana spice powders and whatnot. And I just discovered this week that if I go to all recipes here, they actually give you the recipes about how to make that stuff. And I've got it all in my spice drawer, and I never knew. I thought it was some sort of really special spice. Turns out it's just a mixture, and you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
So if you're ever out of something, just look around on the internet. Somebody has a recipe you can get pretty close to it.
Yeah, Pinterest will have that. I know how all recipes works behind the scenes, and they're kind of less than upstanding.
Reputable?
Well,
I love irreputable things.
Yeah,
I
I
am
know.
so irreputable.
I'm a bigger like when I want to find a recipe, I will find all recipes always ranks highest. I will look for a blog written by a person rather than I do go to like Bon Appetit or Food 52 has some good stuff, but I will always try and find an individual that has a food blog and click on that article and then read that one first.
Well, apparently you have more time when you get to this point than I do. Most of the time I'm looking at it and it's 4:45 and we need to eat by 5:30. And so I'm in here just flying through every recipe I can find that looks good and something I can do that's easy. And I will steal someone's recipe in a heartbeat.
Okay. All right.
But that's all right. I'm glad you have some morals.
Did you listen to my podcast with my cousin Sharon talking about campfire cooking?
I did. She was fascinating. And I love her tripods, particularly the very tall tripods.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people probably do not know is that tripods were so prized, they were given as war bounty during during the Peloponnesian War, but during the war for Troy, they were handed out as war bounty.
Wow.
They were so prized, and so everybody got a tripod, and you get a tripod, and you get a tripod, and you get a tripod. It's actually interesting when you read Homer how often tripods come up, but her ladder system where you could move it up and down away from the fire. Most of them, like she said, the little short ones that are only 4 foot tall.
Right.
You can't get that high enough above the flame.
Yeah, her tripod is quite high, and then she has a series of hooks of different lengths.
Right.
And if she wants to change the height, she just puts it on a different hook there.
Yeah. And then the guy that overthought it and put the winch on it, I thought, well, that's Eric.
Yeah, I have an electric winch like that. So.
Oh, so you do. It's even electric.
I just like that. I mean, I see my cousin Sharon occasionally. Unfortunately, we see each other at funerals, which is the only time the family gets together, it seems. But she's my only relative that understands what I do.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, "Oh, hi, Eric." And they have the Jersey accent, which I have lost. And they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I have the YouTube channel." They're like, "Oh, yeah, YouTube channel, yeah,
Yeah. What? You bum? What are you really doing?
Right. Well, I'm trying to have a YouTube channel.
Yeah. Do you know what we call family reunions in Lubbock, where I'm from?
A
funeral.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, Sharon's going to be back on because she bought her husband bought it. It's kind of a funny story. I think it's a 170-year-old house, which is older than mine.
I'll be the judge of whether or not it's funny.
Okay. Well, I like her husband. Her husband, Bob's a really good guy. He likes power tools and maybe has a few too many in his garage, from what I understand. So.
His name's Rick. Yeah.
But anyway, she's going to come back on and talk about all the crazy things they encounter. I mean, they bought the house. It seemed, oh, it's great. And then, 5 days later, the sewer broke, The Garden Fork Radio podcast is brought to you by the Garden Fork patrons. Those are people that really like the show and make a monthly contribution. I don't know if you've heard of Patreon before, but that's the service that we use for this. You can sign up for $3 a month, $5 a month, $10, really whatever you want. If you are strapped for cash, do not send me cash, okay? But, $3, cup of coffee, $5, is that a latte? I don't drink lattes, but anyway, what I do in return is you have my eternal thanks, and I also post some behind-the-scenes stuff, photos of stuff I'm working on. I have, I call it the woods walk. I'm usually in the woods, but just about every week I do an audio recording. It's like a custom podcast for my patrons, and you can listen to that by email, or I think you can do an RSS feed, or it'll show up in the Patreon app, which is, I think, a really cool app to use to keep up with Garden Fork. And coming, when I get my actor to set it up, is video. So some exclusive behind-the-scenes video stuff of what I'm working. Like, I worked with my tractor this weekend, and I didn't make a video about it, but the Garden Fork patrons knew about it, So it's that kind of thing. I moved a lot of... there was a dead white pine we cut up, and I had to move it, and the tractor worked very well for that. Anyway, information about that is in the show notes to the show here. You can go to patreon.com/gardenfork and check that out. I would appreciate you considering that. All right, back to the show. So
I was doing, I think we've told everybody that I was doing transcranial magnetic stimulation for depression. And you have to sit there for 20 minutes, and they know not to put like CNN or Fox or something up on the TV. So it's always home and garden TV. And I watch these people, and they turn out fabulous homes. But I keep thinking in the back of my mind, why don't you just knock it down and start over? Because some of the trash they start off with is just, it boggles my mind they would even bother thinking about trying to fix something like that up. And so I'm not saying that's true about your cousin, but and then when they do the things they, when they do the things they do to the house, it's all cosmetic. I'm like, yeah, here's a 210-year-old house, and they haven't put like spray foam in the walls, and they haven't insulated underneath. They haven't done all the important things. They haven't replaced all the plumbing. They haven't replaced all the electrical. Instead, they just put in a really great looking kitchen and some fancy artwork, and then decorate it real well. And it just drives me crazy sitting there and watching that.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, Rick.
Yeah, well, and then I've, for a long time, I thought your house up in Connecticut, maybe we ought to, they should have gone ahead and burned it for the fire department. But, it gives you something to make shows about.
Right. That's the point exactly, is that it wouldn't be there. This is all about story. It's telling a story. And then there are many story arcs, or there can be multiple story arcs within the 22 minutes that episode is, or whatever, the 44 minutes. And I used to work in television. My friends used to work in reality TV, and a lot of it is not actually reality. It's I just, my only thought is that some of those houses are held together with hot glue just for the television show.
I think that's true. You say, you're a storyteller, and I do think of you as the Stephen King of home improvement.
All right, so this is the part of the show where I read some fantastic reviews that we've gotten on iTunes, and we have 3 new ones.
That's right. $3 a piece we pay now.
Yeah. First one is from Harkina, who actually we email with a lot.
Yeah, we do.
Spend some time with Eric and his friends, 5 stars. What I love about Eric's show is that it's real. He tries things, he discusses things, life goes sideways, yes, and we get to hear about it. After listening to all the old podcasts and weekly, I feel that I've got a new friend who inspires me to make and try new things. Let's do this and see what happens. Exactly. Listen along while gardening, yelling at the lawnmower you are trying to repair, or while contemplating beekeeping. You won't be disappointed. Well, that was very nice.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Next one is from David McClellan. A gem of a podcast, 5 stars. I started listening to Garden Fork Radio several years ago. Don't have honeybees or maple trees. Don't boil sap or make maple syrup. Probably won't ever repair a furnace or build a boat or have the need. Eric does not like wind chimes, and I do, but that's okay. Why listen? Because out of all this randomness, I glean tidbits of aha moments, tidbits of information I would never hear anywhere. Over the years, I have stored the tidbits away, and many times a task is made easier from one or more of those tidbits, pearls of wisdom. Great job, Eric, Rick, and Will, and the cast of many.
Oh, thank you so much. He's actually right. It's knowing, it's storing that stuff up. She who must be obeyed, will ask me, why do you go to Lowe's and just walk up and down the aisle, up and down the aisle, up and down the aisle? You're not buying anything. I said, that's not the point. You need to know what's available.
Yes.
I mean, and that's kind of what we're doing here. You don't need to know this information today, but eventually you're going to go, damn, Eric talked about that 3 weeks ago. I need to go back and listen to it. And that's kind of what we do here.
There is a hardware store near me, which is like a mashup of Harbor Freight tools, a 100-year-old hardware store, and a dollar store. And
okay.
And it's kind of the Latino version of Dollar General mashed up with Harbor Freight and some other stuff. And I just walk them down the aisles, and it's a small store, but it is crammed full of stuff. And I needed some trisodium phosphate to clean some walls, and no one around in my neighborhood had it. And I know they have it. And they had it crammed in with all the other paint stuff. And I was like, there it is. And I had it. It was like $3. So
yeah.
But I knew, anyway, there's one more from DK38.01. Enjoyable and approachable DIY show, 5 stars. I have really enjoyed this show for many years and also love the YouTube channel too. Yay. Sometimes it is a solo show with commentary on DIY projects. Sometimes there's interviews with regular guests or new guests, always presenting something interesting. Very approachable manner, and topics are everyday issues we encounter, whether gardening, cooking, or storm preparation, DIY repairs, etc. Eric is quick to respond with suggestions and commentary via emails. I do that. This one survived the cut when I had to reduce my overwhelming podcast load. Yay!
Hey, that's right.
Thanks,
You know,
Steve.
Eric replies to all the emails because he does not have a life. So, you know, one of the things I wanted to talk about. By the way, thank you. That was a wonderful letter. But
Let
you know,
me
it's
just pull
time.
the knife out from my shoulder blade here, Rick.
You know, it's time to clean up the garden, and you know, things begin to wilt back and die back, and you know, you're tempted to. You know, we talk a lot about making compost piles you know, and
Mulching the
taking your
leaves.
leaves, you know, mulching them in, all that stuff. I just want to caution everyone: do not ever compost your tomato vines. Just
No.
put them in the trash and throw them away. Most of the diseases that are endemic in the soil are on the tomato vines, and you'll just be sending that soil, recycling it, because homeowners almost never get compost hot enough to kill the fungus when we're talking about late blight,
Right.
early blight, that kind of thing. Also, uh, tobacco
Tobacco mosaic
mosaic
virus.
mosaic virus, which is really common. If you smoke, or if someone you know smokes, never let them touch your tomato vines, because they will transfer that virus to your vines as well. So never ever compost tomato vines. Instead, just throw them away or burn them or bury them or do something, but don't put them back in your garden. You'll just make problems for yourself in the future.
Yes, that is good. That's very good.
So I finally had one good suggestion.
Well, you were kind of on a tear today, so it was. I
Yeah,
thought it was entertaining for everyone.
yeah, it was, well, yeah, a little over-caffeinated, maybe. You know, whatever you're drinking, I want you to reduce it by half, Rick.
All right, so people are in the parking lot now, or they have gotten off their train or their bus or their subway.
Or they've thrown themselves in front of their train.
All right, thanks everyone for listening. If you want to consider supporting Garden Fork, you can do that. There are links in the show here for my patrons, my supporters. I put out a behind-the-scenes audio podcast and photos and text, and working on doing video for the very same thing. That's coming up soon. So,
Oh, wait. I forgot to mention something. I want to tell you how much I appreciate the service you did me on hard-boiled eggs. I had no idea that you could steam hard eggs, make them hard-boiled,
yeah.
and make them easy to peel. We need to talk about that video. It's on the site. You need to go see it now. It changed my life when it came to hard-boiled eggs.
Oh, great. It's not on the site. It's on YouTube channel right now, and it'll be on the site this week. So I'll link to it in the show notes here. Just scroll up from the icon, the Labrador icon, and it'll show it to you.
But I just didn't know that you could do it that way, and it works out so much better than submerging them in 6 inches of water and boiling them until they, you know, whatever.
All right. Well, cool. I'm glad I could help you, sir.
Okay.
All right,
That's what
everyone.
we're here to help each other.
Go out and make it a great day, all right? And just pay it forward.
Talk to you later, my friend. You have a great day. Bye-bye.
Garden Fork Radio's executive producer is Jimmy Goots. You can find more information about Jimmy and the custom hollow books he makes at hollowbooks.com. Our theme music is used under license from uniquetracks.com. Other music used in the show is used under license from audioblocks.com.